The Crucible was a scar across the stars. Every cadet knew its reputation, every veteran whispered its name with respect, and every species feared it. A world engineered for one purpose: to kill without hesitation. Its storms could shear stone. Its rivers boiled with acid-spined leviathans. Its plains crawled with predators so ancient and perfected that lesser worlds had never known their like. Yet from orbit, the planet gleamed deceptively beautiful. Vast emerald forests stretched into canyons of black stone. Lightning veined the horizon like cracks in a god's mirror, and the air shimmered with thermal currents strong enough to carry entire creatures skyward. To most cadets of the Galactic Concord Academy, the Crucible was a final test few survived. To one human, it was simply ground to cover. Cadet Aria Salas stood at the threshold of the deployment platform, her white training suit reflecting the sterile lights of the launch bay. Around her, other alien cadets murmured, some with pity, others with kind of sick anticipation. "Foolish," hissed a chitinous Thrixian, its mandibles clattering. "Walking alone without escort drones. The beast will split her bones before the first hour." "Humans," scoffed another, this one scaled and scarlet-eyed. "They mistake stubbornness for strength." Arya did not answer. She rarely did. Words had little meaning here. Above the bay, Instructor Valeth Karn loomed on the command dais. His massive frame, corded with scars and plated flesh, was itself a reminder of the wars he once waged as a Predator Lord. His voice carried through the chamber, low and cold. "Observe closely, cadets," he rumbled. "Humanity claims lineage from a Deathworld. They boast resilience. They boast defiance. Let us see how long such boasting lasts when the Crucible welcomes them." Aria's gaze flicked upward, meeting Karn's eyes for the briefest instant. His sneer widened at her silence. He had been waiting for fear, for some flicker of doubt. There was none. The platform door split open, spilling blinding daylight into the chamber. A wave of heat rolled in, thick with the scent of ozone and iron. The Crucible was waiting. Arya stepped forward without hesitation. From the observation decks circling orbit, thousands of eyes watched the live feed. War chiefs, strategists, and dignitaries filled the tiers, some leaning forward with predatory hunger, others whispering to aides, all waiting for blood. Humanity's admission into the Concord had been controversial from the beginning. They were too young, too raw, their fleet small compared to the ancient empires. Their bid for respect rested on fragile shoulders, shoulders now walking into hell. The first steps echoed across the feed. Arya moved steadily down the ramp, the soles of her boots striking metal, then dirt. The transition was stark. Technology behind her, wilderness before her. Wind toward her hair, carrying with it the low growl of unseen predators. Across the plain, a dozen pairs of eyes glowed from the tree-lean. Shapes shifted, hulking, fast, razor-edged. The Crucible's apex beasts had come to greet their new prey. The council chamber hushed. Even Karn leaned forward, expecting the inevitable lunge, the spray of crimson, the end of another human experiment. It never came. The beasts prowled closer, circling, their breaths steaming in the heat. Claws carved grooves into stone. One, braver than the rest, bared fangs the length of daggers and loosed a roar that rattled the air. Arya did not break stride. Her pace remained calm, measured, each step a steady rhythm. Her hands hung loose at her sides, neither clenched nor reaching for the blade at her hip. She turned her head slightly, meeting the predator's gaze. The roar died in its throat. One by one, the glowing eyes faltered. The circle broke. The predators withdrew, slinking back into the forest shadow, as though some unseen command had leashed them. Gasps rippled through the observation tiers. "Impossible," muttered a scaled warlord. "The Maw Pack yields to nothing." "Some trick," Karn snapped, though the tension in his jaw betrayed unease. "A chemical repellent. An implant. Nothing more." But there was no tech in Aria's suit that could explain the silence. No pheromone to account for the bowed heads of creatures bred to reign unchallenged. What the audience saw was something rawer, older, a predator's recognition of another. Arya continued across the plain, vanishing slowly into the heat shimmer. Inside the control chamber, a young cadet dared to whisper, "Instructor, why didn't they attack?" Karn's claws scraped against the railing. "Because they are patient," he growled. "They wait for weakness, and she will show it soon enough." But even as he spoke, doubt twisted in his gut. He had seen beasts of the Crucible tear apart armored squads, crush veterans underfoot. Yet the human girl had walked through their hunger like mist, and the beasts had yielded. Arya's voice, calm and unhurried, crackled through the calms for the first time. "Mark my path," she said. "Others will follow." It was not boast, not defiance, only a statement. The council chamber erupted into low debate. Some mocked her arrogance, others scribbled notes, and a few remained silent, watching the feed with new wariness. For them, something old stirred, a whisper that humanity's Deathworld nature was not mere propaganda, but something primal carved into their very being. On the ground, Arya reached the edge of the forest. The canopy loomed ahead, branches interlocked like a fortress wall. Shadows shifted within, and deep-throated calls echoed across the dark. The Crucible would not let her pass untested. Yet still, she walked on, her figure shrinking as the trees swallowed her. High above, Karn bared his teeth. His claws tapped against the railing in time with her fading footsteps. "Walk while you can, human," he muttered under his breath. "Soon, even silence will not save you." But he could not shake the image of apex beasts, the lords of the Crucible, stepping aside for her as though they had known her kind all along. The first day had only begun, and already the galaxy was watching differently. The Crucible was alive with sound. Trees creaked like bones, rivers hissed with venomous spray, and beneath every stone lurked something ready to bite. The deeper Arya Salas walked into the forest, the thicker the silence around her became. The predators that had first gathered on the plains had not returned. Still, she felt their presence in every rustle of leaves and shift of shadow. From orbit, the observation chamber brimmed with nervous energy. Alien cadets whispered among themselves, their voices trembling between awe and ridicule. "She cannot last. The forest belongs to the razor herd." Then why do they not strike? "They will. Hunger is patient." Karn remained silent, his eyes fixed on the live feed. His claws tapped in slow rhythm against the railing, each strike like a warning drum. He wanted her fall to be swift, undeniable, humiliating. The longer she walked unchallenged, the more the silence worked against him. The forest floor sloped downward into a wide clearing choked with thorn vines. Arya slowed her pace, eyes narrowing as movement stirred within the brush. A faint tremor passed through the soil. She adjusted her footing, bracing. Then they came. Dozens of razor herdlings burst from foliage, quadruple creatures with bone-bladed ridges across their backs and jaws built for tearing flesh. Individually, they were no great threat, but they swarmed, overwhelming by sheer numbers. They shrieked as one, a piercing chorus meant to frighten prey into panic flight. Arya didn't move. The first wave charged, claws raking across stone, eyes burning with feral hunger. She inhaled slowly, shifting her stance only enough to anchor her weight. Her gaze cut across the herd, sharp, unyielding. The razor herdlings faltered. Their screeches broke, confusion rippling through the pack. One lunged, then froze mid-stride, hackles raised, jaws quivering. In the stillness, the rest backed away. The swarm that had flattened armored squads before now turned, scattering back into the shadows with pitiful whines. Gasps filled the observation tiers. That was submission, an insectoid dignitary whispered. They yielded. "They do not yield," a rival species barked. Something interfered. Sensors, check for sonic emitters. Pheromone discharge, anything. The readings returned clean. No weapons, no devices. Only a human cadet standing still, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Karn snarled low in his throat. "Do not be deceived." Herd scattered to regroup. "She is not safe." Arya resumed walking, unhurried, as though the encounter had been nothing more than weather. Hours passed. The Crucible tested her with shifting ground and violent winds. Lightning slashed across the sky in jagged arcs, trees splitting with each strike. She moved with care but without hesitation, adapting with quiet efficiency, choosing footholds with instinct, adjusting her path without wasted motion. Predators continued to stalk. A shadow swooped overhead, wings spanning 20 meters. The Sky Hunter, a terror that fed on armored transports, circled with predatory patience. The alien cadets leaned closer to their screens. Now, one muttered. No creature escapes the Sky Hunter. The beast folded its wings and dove, faster than sight. Arya waited until the last instant. She did not flee, did not flinch. She turned her head upward and locked eyes with the descending predator. Her expression never shifted, calm and cold as stone. The Sky Hunter screamed, then twisted, folding its dive into a frantic climb. It fled into the clouds, vanishing with a trail of shrieks that sounded less like triumph and more like fear. The chamber erupted into chaos. She looked at it. That's all she did. Impossible. A Sky Hunter yields to no groundling. Karn slammed his claw against the railing, silencing the noise. Fools, you are blinded by spectacle. Beasts flee for many reasons. Fear, confusion, hunger elsewhere. There is nothing in that human worthy of reverence. But even he felt the unease spreading through the chamber. These were not random flukes. Twice now, apex predators had balked in the face of a single unarmed cadet. On the ground, Arya paused at a stream cutting through the forest. Its waters hissed with acidity, chewing through stone, releasing noxious steam. She crouched, studying its flow, eyes tracing the safe crossing stones. Her expression was unreadable, focused, distant, as if she were mapping the world in silence. Her calm crackled. Karn's voice filled her ear, laced with disdain. Still alive, human? Enjoy your borrowed time. The Crucible has no patience for weak blood. Arya did not answer. Her silence infuriated him more than any insult could. He leaned closer to the mic. Do you think this proves strength? You are a child wandering into the maw of gods. You will be swallowed, and none will remember your name. Still no reply. She stepped across the stones with deliberate care, reaching the far bank without pause. The calm went dead again. Karn bared his teeth. Stay silent, then. It will not save you. The canopy thinned, opening into a canyon scarred by ancient claws. The air here was heavier, pressing down like a weight. The soil bore deep gouges, bones scattered across the ground like discarded toys. The maw beasts dwelled here. From the shadows of the canyon walls, they emerged, massive, quadrupedal creatures armored in dark plates, jaws splitting wide enough to swallow a manhole. Their presence was suffocating. Even the atmosphere seemed to tremble. The cadets watching in orbit held their breath. No one had ever crossed Maw territory without bloodshed. The beasts circled, heads lowering, snarls vibrating through the canyon stone. Dust lifted in trembling clouds. Arya stopped walking. For a moment, silence stretched across the canyon, taut as wire. Then she lifted her head, eyes sweeping across the circling predators. Her face remained calm, her breathing slow. One beast stepped forward, massive and scarred, clearly the alpha. It loosed a roar that echoed across the chamber feeds, shaking dust from ceilings miles above. The sound was primal, a promise of annihilation. Arya did not move. The alpha's roar faltered, dwindling into a low growl. Its head tilted, nostrils flaring. Slowly it stepped back. The others followed, withdrawing into the shadows, until the canyon stood empty once more. Not a drop of blood spilled. Not a sound remained but the whisper of wind. The chamber erupted into uproar. They retreated. Maw beasts never retreat. This is wrong. It must be staged. Karn's claws tore grooves into the railing. His voice was harsh, guttural. No creature yields without reason. I will find it, and when I do, the illusion of her strength will collapse. But he could not deny what he had seen. The galaxy's deadliest predators had yielded, step by step, to a human cadet who had not raised a single weapon. Arya resumed her walk through the canyon, her figure dwindling into the distance. She did not look back. The canyon narrowed into a ravine, its walls sheer and wet with mineral sheen. Arya's solace pressed onward, each step echoing faintly between the stone. The Crucible was changing. Its chaos gave way to something colder, more deliberate. The predators had stopped striking. They lingered now, silent silhouettes in high shadows, watching her passage without interference. On the orbital station, the observation chamber was hushed. The screens magnified every twitch of movement, every shimmer of dust disturbed by her boots. Entire delegations leaned forward, their voices caught between disbelief and dawning unease. "Why do they only watch?" whispered a scaled dignitary. "Why not devour her?" No one answered. Karn stood rigid at the command dais, his claws curling against the steel. Fury smoldered in his chest, but beneath it a coil of doubt twisted tighter with every silent retreat she forced upon the Crucible's horrors. At ground level, Arya paused at a fork where the ravine split into two paths, one ascending toward pale light, the other plunging into thick mist. She studied both silently, the subtle tilt of her head betraying calculation. Her hand brushed a stone, tracing the faint grooves etched there by talons long ago. A growl drifted through the mist. Low, resonant, close. She exhaled, then chose a downward path. Her descent took her into a basin veiled in fog. The air tasted metallic, heavy with the tang of blood that wasn't hers. Bones littered the ground, cracked clean by massive jaws. The fog thinned just enough to reveal hulking shapes shifting at the edges. Dozens of eyes glimmered, wide and unblinking. The bone pack. Wolves, if wolves had been bred in the dark heart of collapsing stars. Long, lean bodies stretched with predatory grace. Fangs jagged like broken blades, muscles rippling with every breath. They circled, silent, not lunging, not testing, only waiting. Arya stopped in the center of the basin. She met their stares one by one, steady and unafraid. The silence thickened, broken only by the crunch of bone under her boots. On the feed, a cadet from a reptilian race hissed through sharp teeth. They will tear her apart. No prey endures the bone pack stare. Yet the pack did not move. Their tails flicked low, ears flat. The lead hound, scar across its muzzle, stepped closer. Its head lowered, not in attack, but in acknowledgement. Then, with a guttural rumble, it turned and melted back into fog. The others followed, the chamber filled with shocked murmurs. They deferred. No, they sensed something unseen. Beasts do not bend to phantoms, an elder growled. They bent to her. Karn's voice cut through, raw and harsh. Enough. She is a human. Nothing more. You watch coincidence and call it reverence. The crucible bends for no one. Still, his eyes did not leave the girl on the screen. Arya pressed forward until the fog lifted into open sky. The basin gave way to high cliffs, jagged peaks clawing toward clouds churned by violent winds. Lightning carved across the heavens, thunder rolling like the march of titans. Here, the crucible revealed its final trial of the day, the storm plateau. Gale-force winds slammed into her frame, threatening to hurl her from the cliff edge. The rocks shuddered beneath her boots. Dust and pebbles whipped through the air, slicing like glass. Yet her steps remained measured, one hand lifted to shield her eyes, the other balancing her frame as though she walked across nothing more dangerous than a training hall floor. Overhead, the storm leviathan stirred. Its colossal coils twisted to the blackened clouds, body longer than starships, scales glimmering with electrical arcs. Its roar split the atmosphere, vibrating through bone and stone alike. Lightning rained with its fury, searing craters into the plateau. The cadets watching recoiled as if the thunder had struck them personally. "She cannot face that," whispered one. "No one can." Arya looked up. The wind ripped at her hair. Lightning clawed the ground at her feet, but her eyes locked on Leviathan's gaze high above. She stood unbowed, her silhouette stark against the storm. The beast coiled tighter, lightning flaring from its body in violent lashes. Then it stopped. The great head lowered, luminous eyes narrowing as it studied the small figure below. For a breathless eternity, Predator and Cadet regarded one another, and then, impossibly, the Leviathan retreated. Its body spiraled upward, thunder fading with its departure. The storm stilled, leaving behind only the whisper of the wind. The entire chamber on the orbital station erupted. Dignitaries shouted, cadets argued, generals barked orders to replay the feed. The Crucible's most destructive predator had withdrawn, leaving the human untouched. Karn's bellows silenced them all. "You blind yourselves." This is not strength, it is deception. Something poisons the Crucible's instincts. She carries a stench, a trick. Find it, or you prove yourselves fools. Yet even as he roared, doubt gnawed at him. The Crucible did not bow to tricks. It consumed deception as easily as flesh. He could not reconcile what his eyes had shown him. Apex monsters retreating one after another before Cadet, who had not raised a weapon, had not bared her teeth, had not spoken a word. On the plateau, Arya finally paused. She sat on a fragment of shattered stone, her breathing steady, expression unreadable. For the first time, her calm activated, not in response to Karn's taunts, but as a transmission of her own choosing. Her voice carried calm, quiet, and absolute control. "You keep asking why they yield," she said, not addressing any one listener, but all of them. "You see weakness, and you mistake it for strength. But strength is not in killing. It is in being recognized." The chamber froze. Her words cut sharper than blades. She continued, her tone as even as her stride. "Every beast in this place was born knowing only dominance or death. They see both in me. They do not challenge what they already accept." The transmission cut. Silence hung in the chamber, heavy as stone. Karn's claws sank into the railing until sparks flew. He could not mask the tremor in his chest, rage, disbelief, and something more dangerous, fear. On the screens, Arya rose again, walking deeper into the Crucible. And though the path ahead was unknown, one thing was certain to all who watched. She was no longer being tested. She was being acknowledged. The Crucible did not sleep. Even in stillness, its cliffs groaned, its skies shivered, its soil breathed through vents of steam. Arya walked across a stretch of obsidian plain fractured by glowing seams of magma. The heat shimmered the air, painting mirages of movement. To others, the ground itself would have been unbearable. To her, it was another rhythm to learn and master. Above, the orbital chamber swelled with debate. The Leviathan's retreat had shaken every faction. Some muttered of omens, others demanded analysis, while few, rare, cautious few, spoke of respect. General Velex, broad-shelled and weathered by countless campaigns, slammed a clawed hand against the railing. "We came to judge resilience. Instead, we watch ritual. This recognition by the Crucible is unprecedented." Karn snarled, his eyes still locked on the screen. "Precedent is irrelevant. Illusion will not make her kin strong. I will not permit your awe to blind you. You fear what you do not understand." Velex shot back. "That is the lesson here." The chamber erupted again, but Arya neither saw nor heard. Her world was heat, stone, and the faint whisper claws tracking her from the ridges above. The stalkers came at last. Lean, six-legged shapes, for thin as ash, eyes wide and gleaming silver. Silent by nature, killers by necessity. They moved in coordinated arcs, surrounding her, their bodies vanishing and reappearing like smoke in the shifting haze. Any other cadet would have drawn steel, formed a circle, shouted defiance. Arya only stopped walking. Her breathing slowed. Her hands dropped loosely at her sides. The pack leader crept forward, sinew rippling beneath its hide, jaws flexing with hunger. It lunged, closing the gap in a blur. And then it froze. Not struck, not bound, froze in mid-motion, claws suspended inches from her chest. Its head tilted, confused, a tremor coursing down its limbs. The haze seemed to hold it back, not with force, but with certainty. The others faltered, circling wider, unease bleeding into their formation. Arya did not flinch. She met the leader's eyes and whispered, calm and measured, "Not today." The beast whimpered, a sound none had ever recorded. It lowered itself, claws retracting and backed away. The pack followed, vanishing into shimmering air, their pursuit abandoned. On the station, silence crashed down heavier than thunder. "They broke," someone whispered. "Not broke," another corrected. "Yielded." Karn bared his teeth. "This is fabrication. She carries a toxin, a pheromone, some trick that fouls the instinct of predators. Would you enter the Crucible yourself to test this theory?" Velex asked dryly. The challenge left Karn's retort unsaid. Down below, Arya pressed onward. Her pace did not quicken in triumph or slow in relief. She was the same as she had been when she stepped into the crucible, deliberate, steady, unwavering. But her thoughts were not still. Each encounter etched itself into her mind. The Bone Pack's retreat, the Leviathan's withdrawal, the Stalker's surrender. They had not been accidents. No prey survived by chance against so many predators. Something deeper was unfolding. Her training echoed in memory. Humans are anomalies. You are not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the fiercest. You survive because you are impossible to measure until it is too late. Perhaps that was the truth the Crucible recognized, not raw power, but something quieter, the inevitability of endurance. Hours later, as shadows lengthened, the landscape shifted again. The plain gave way to a field of colossal statues carved from black stone. Each figure depicted a predator long extinct, immortalized with snarling jaws and reaching talons. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dusk, powered by veins of energy flowing beneath the rock. Arya stepped between them, her presence dwarfed by their towering forms. The statues seemed almost alive, heads tilting slightly as she passed. In the chamber, whispers grew uneasy. "Do you see?" Even relics respond to her. "She has crossed into the grave march," an elder murmured. "Few cadets return from there. It is not beasts that test them, but memory." The air thickened with something heavier than heat. Whispers threaded through the wind, voices she knew yet could not place. "Arya." She stopped, heart pounding despite her discipline. A shadow coalesced at the base of one statue, forming the outline of a soldier clad in battle armor scorched black. Her father's face stared back. "Turn back," the apparition urged. "This place is death. You cannot bend it forever." For the first time, hesitation cracked her calm. Her fists clenched. Breath caught in her throat. "Fear projection." Velex muttered from the chamber. The Crucible conjures the memory of fallen bloodlines. It forces a cadet to face what shaped them. Arya's jaw tightened. The Phantom stepped closer, voice trembling with accusation. "You left us. You walked away when Earth burned. Will you walk again when this place devours you?" Her chest heaved once, sharp and raw. She steadied herself, eyes burning but voice level. "You're not him. He never asked me to turn back." The shadow froze, form shuddering before dispersing into smoke. The statues dimmed. The grave march fell silent. On the station, Karn's claws scraped steel. He had waited for her collapse, her scream, her breaking. Instead, she had faced grief and burned it into fuel. Velex's mandibles clicked softly. "Now you see." Even memory bows to her resolve. Night bled across the Crucible. Arya climbed a ridge until she reached the plateau overlooking the valley below. Fires smoldered in distant pits, casting the landscape in red glow. She lowered herself against a jagged stone, conserving strength. For the first time since she entered, she allowed herself a whisper. Not to the Crucible, not to predators, but to herself. Still walking. The words were simple, but their weight carried. The feed captured it. Across the chamber, across dozens of systems where observers tuned in, the phrase echoed, a Deathworld creed distilled to its core. Still walking, Karn left the chamber. He could not bear the silence any longer, the silence of those who once doubted humanity. Now sitting in awe, alone in the corridor, he pressed a clawed hand to the wall, fury surging hot enough to shake his composure. "She will not finish," he growled to himself. "I will see to it." Plans took root in the shadows. The Crucible's laws forbade interference, but laws could be bent. And if the beast would not tear her apart, then he would bring something into the Crucible that even humanity could not endure. Dawn bled across the Crucible in streaks of copper light. The air was sharp, carrying the scent of scorched stone and iron-rich dust. Arya's solace rose from where she had rested against the ridge. Her muscles ached, but her stride was steady as she descended into the valley below. Above her, the observation chamber was tense with anticipation. No cadet had lasted this long without scars, without retreat, without submission. Yet she had pressed onward, and the Crucible itself seemed apart before her. Karn watched in silence, a storm building beneath his composed exterior. He had prepared for this moment. If the beasts would not strike, then he would give them reason. His talon pressed a hidden control at the dais. In the depths of the crucible, barriers shifted, doors grown open, and something older than a leviathan stirred. The valley floor was littered with shattered pillars, relics of structures consumed long ago. The ground trembled with each step Arya took. A shadow moved across the cliffs, too large, too deliberate to be natural. Then it emerged, a creature unlike any Arya had faced before. Massive, plated in obsidian armor, each limb thick as a tree trunk, its face a fusion of mandibles and tusks. Its breath came in molten gusts that scorched the stone. The chamber erupted in uproar. That is forbidden. Velex thundered, mandibles flaring. The prime beast is sealed by law. Karn said nothing. His gaze was locked on the screen, his lips curling into a smile devoid of warmth. The prime beast roared, a sound that cracked the pillars and drove lesser predators fleeing in terror. Its eyes, molten gold, fixed on a lone human below. Arya did not move. She inhaled once, the heat searing her lungs, then exhaled slowly. Her mind reached for calm. Running was useless. Fighting was madness. Only one path remained, the same path she had walked since the beginning. Recognition. She stepped forward. The prime beast charged, ground quaking under its bulk. Dust rose in storms around its feet. Lightning speed would not save her nor strength. She held her ground. At the last possible instant, as the creature's bulk bore down, she raised her voice, not in defiance, not in fear, but in command. Enough. The word was clear, unwavering, carried not just by her throat, but by the weight of every step she had taken through the crucible. The beast stopped. Its tusks halted inches from her frame. Its molten eyes widened, confusion trembling through its colossal body. Then slowly, agonizingly slowly, it lowered itself onto its knees. Dust billowed outward. The valley shook with the weight of submission. The chamber froze. No one breathed. The prime beast bowed. General Velex rose, his voice carrying authority that silenced even the most doubtful. The crucible itself kneels. Humanity's creed is carved into this day. Strength beyond strength, endurance that commands even the apex. Karn snarled, slamming his claws against the railing. No, this cannot stand. You've been deceived. By what? Velex snapped. By your own sabotage? We know what you unleashed. Yet even your treachery bends before her. You sought her death and proved her supremacy. Karn's composure fractured. His fury spilled out in guttural roars. But the chamber no longer listened. Eyes, thousands of them, were fixed on a human cadet, standing before the bowed prime beast. Arya placed one hand lightly on the beast's armored snout. The heat singed her skin, but she did not withdraw. Her words were quiet, private, not for the chamber but for herself. You know me now. That is enough. The prime beast rumbled, a sound not a challenge but of acknowledgement. Then it withdrew, retreating back into the depths from which Karn had forced it. The crucible grew still. The trial was over. When Arya emerged onto the plateau where extraction awaited, the skies parted, light streaming down, as though the crucible itself sought to frame her in brilliance. She carried no trophies, bore no scars, and wielded no weapon. Yet every species watching understood the truth. She had conquered the unconquerable by walking through it unchanged. Still walking. In the chamber, proclamations were already being drafted. Human envoys would find doors opening where once only walls stood. Military strategists whispered of alliances. Scholars spoke of paradigms shifting. Karn, however, did not join them. He stood apart, his body trembling with rage and something darker, fear. She is not a soldier, he hissed, though no one listened. She is something worse. Something that does not break. The extraction pod opened on the plateau. A voice over comms, calm reverence spoke. Cadet Solace. The trial is complete. Step aboard. She looked once more at the horizon of the crucible, its jagged peaks and endless plains. For the first time, she allowed herself a small smile. Still walking, she whispered again, then entered the pod. The pod rose, leaving the crucible behind. But the image remained burned into every watching mind. a lone human cadet, unarmed, unflinching, walking to the most dangerous world known to the Concord and leaving it bowed. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as fragile, volatile, reckless. In a single trial, that image shattered. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but the only species that could command even death to step aside. And so the story began, whispered across barracks, etched into records, feared in council halls. When the Crucible bowed to a human,